Okay, this lesson is all about definite and indefinite articles. Now, before we go any further, let's actually take a moment and think about what do we mean by definite and indefinite articles, because let's be honest, they sound really quite scary, don't they? They sound like they're potentially very complicated things. Actually, they're these tiny little words that we find in front of nouns. And in English, you've got your definite article is the word the. So, the dog, the house, the computer. And the indefinite is a, an, or some. So, a dog, some dogs, a computer, some computers. Okay, so these tiny little words that are simply put in front of the noun. Now, the word the being a definite article, perhaps a way to help you remember the fact that it's called a definite article, the sort of implies that we can see that sort of item. Think of my example of the dog. If I'm saying to you, the dog is happy, then presumably you can see a dog and you know which dog I'm talking about. But if I say a dog, it's far more general, isn't it? It's far more indefinite than the. So that might help you a little bit, but we don't need to spend too much time worrying about that and what they're really called, as long as we know how to use them. Now, hopefully you've sort of come to terms with the idea and you're getting used to the idea that in French, nouns have gender. They can either be masculine nouns or they can be feminine nouns. Okay, and as well as that, we also have number, I suppose it's referred to as. Nouns can come in singular form and they can come in plural form, with singular, don't forget, being one of that item, so a dog, plural being more than one of that item, some dogs, or using a definite article, the dog, the dogs. Okay, so because we know that already about nouns, and if, by the way, you don't, you're a little unsure about what I'm talking about, please go back and watch the tutorials about gender and about number to help remind you a little bit of that. But because we know that nouns in French do have gender and they do have number, so singular or plural, then it makes sense that along those lines that our definite articles also have to change in terms of gender and number. So let's start off with then, first and foremost, with our definite articles. Don't forget that's the word the. Okay, now in French there are 4 ways of saying the. You might be quite frustrated by that. I mean, there's only one word in English, but I'll remind you of the fact that English is very complicated language, and actually what I'm going to say now does make sense. Okay, it is very logical. If we are saying the followed by a masculine noun, then we're going to use le. So let's go back to my example of the dog I had earlier. Le chien. So le chien being the, chien being dog. If I've got a feminine noun, I should say at this point, by the way, this is singular, and there's no s's here, so these are singular. The dog, let's go with the house actually. La maison. So the house. La being the in this instance, house being maison. So can you see here why it's so important that we do actually know the gender of our noun? Okay, so if we're ever writing down the word the, we need to stop, we need to think, like, what am I following this by? What noun is coming after it? And is that noun masculine? Is it feminine? And also, is it plural? Okay, if it's plural, so dogs or houses, it's going to be les. So, les chiens or les maisons. Because in this instance, it doesn't actually matter what the gender is. Okay, if it's plural, if you've got more than one of it and we're saying the, then it's always les. Les chiens, les maisons. Do note here, I have got my s's on the end here for plural, but they are silent when we pronounce them. The final one then, you might be wondering why on earth I've left a little gap in here. That's for our L apostrophe. Now, L apostrophe is used to mean the when it's followed by a noun. Followed is terrible handwriting, I'm very sorry about that. Followed by A now. If I scroll my pages down, I might be able to make my handwriting a little bit easier. Oh, I've gone too far. Right, there we go. Followed by a noun starting with a vowel or silent H. So let's give you some examples then. Let's go with l'hôtel. Okay, notice I've got a silent H here. So l'hôtel, meaning the hotel. Okay, we could have l'histoire, the story. Okay, or the history, it can be as well. So the story or history. Okay, and in this instance it doesn't matter whether the noun is masculine or feminine, okay, because this apostrophe is technically replacing the E or the A because they don't like having two vowels next to each other. And don't forget, if the H is silent, okay, then the same rule applies. Excuse me. So those are our definite articles. We've got the option of 4, as I said. Okay, 2, very important, we know the gender. Also very important throughout that we know if we're talking in singular or plural. Right, let's move on then, and let's have a think about indefinite articles, okay, and what are the key differences. So the one above is definite articles that are used for the word the. Indefinite are a, an, or some. I can never seem to write the word some. It always comes out with, looks like an N in the middle there. Right, so let's start with a or an. We've got 2 options, as you might have guessed, dependent on gender. A is followed by a masculine singular noun, and une is followed by a feminine singular noun. So let's go back to my examples we had up here. So here we had the dog. Let's make that a dog now. Okay, let's make that a chien. A dog. A being a, chien being dog. So give an example for the feminine form then we had up here, didn't we? The house, la maison. Let's make that a house now. So it becomes une maison. A house, maison, and une being a. So again, in English, exactly the same word, a, but in French, very important that we do know the gender of the noun that we're going to be using after it, because if it's masculine, we have to say a, if it's feminine, we have to say une. Now, you'll be pleased to hear the word for some doesn't change for gender, it's just des. So let's use examples up here. Let's have some dogs. Des chiens. Notice my S here. Okay, meaning plural. Some dogs. Let's have some houses. Des. Whoops, I've got the colour wrong there, didn't I? Des maisons. Again, notice my S because it's plural. Becomes some houses. So des being some each time. You can see here it doesn't matter. We know chien is masculine, we know maison is feminine, but because we're in the plural form, we just use the word some, which is des. That doesn't change. Okay, let's have a little bit of a recap then. This can be quite tricky and quite confusing to get our heads around sometimes. So let's have a little bit of a recap then of what I've said so far. So we've got definite articles, which are the, and we've got indefinite articles, which are a, an, or some, and they change according to gender. So they change for masculine, they change for feminine. Again, I don't seem to be able to write M's, do I? That's give me something to practice and work on. Excuse me. And they change for plural, don't they? I think it's perhaps worth adding in here, don't you? To put these are singular. Okay, masculine singular, feminine singular. Okay, so what are they? Let's recap then. The word for the is le. Don't forget it can also be L apostrophe if the word after it, the noun, starts with a noun or a noun. That makes no sense. Was it starts with a vowel or a silent H? The Sorry guys, I'm really tickly throat this evening. La, feminine singular, again L apostrophe if the noun starts with a vowel or silent H, and our plural option, le. Okay, whereas our indefinite, we've got a for masculine, une for feminine, and de. Don't forget that the de is the one that means some. The a or une mean a or an. Okay, so final little point, just to really get that home for you. Let's take the example of a living room, le salon. A living room. No, that makes sense. Le salon, the living room. Sorry, really didn't help in trying to clarify for you, does it? Le salon, the living room. Un salon, a living room. So that's the key difference between le and un, the or a. And don't forget, obviously, guys, that the gender of the noun is really important as well.